So October begins our wonderful series on faith. Faith is faith is a crucial conversation, something, as Marianne Williamson wrote, something we need to apply, something we need to embody, something we need to embrace, not just know, but to actually apply it, because faith is not reactionary. Faith is not blind. Faith is visionary. So what does that mean? Marianne Williamson, in one of her books, I dealt with many of them for today. She says, to trust in the force that moves the universe. To trust in the force that moves the universe is faith. Faith is not blind. Faith is visionary. Faith is defined in the dictionary as complete trust or confidence in something or someone. Complete faith, complete trust and confidence. Now, faith is hard for people from a religious perspective because to have complete confidence, we're asked to have complete confidence in a traditional religious context in God, or whatever word you use. And that's a little hard to do when everything's such a mess. Right? And everything has been such a mess for the entire history of humankind. That wars, violence, sorrow, suffering has always existed, and we were somehow taught to believe that's all part of the game. And I want to tell you it's not part of the game. It's not part of the game. There is no power and presence, no entity called God that would have suffering be part of our game. So we have to redefine faith in the same way that we have to redefine God. And if I'm pushing anybody's buttons, I'm sorry. But we have to redefine, we have to come into, what did I say? A more mature understanding of what we're talking about when we're talking about that intelligence and that love and that beauty that governs this universe. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Yes. Okay, good. So Unity, as well as Centers for Spiritual Living, as well as other New Thought churches and centers and communities around the world, we are a metaphysical teaching. We are a spiritual teaching, not so much a religious one. Now, metaphysics is not science fiction. It is an emerging understanding that behind all creation, behind all forms, all effects, all conditions, all situations, there is consciousness, there is mind, there is thought. And what that really means when you come right down to it is that forms flow from consciousness, and consciousness precedes forms. So if we have a life or a world we don't like, guess whose problem it isn't? It isn't God's, it's ours. Now, we had to have received this metaphysical power, this ability to think our world into forms. You know, the Buddhist said, all the world arises with our thoughts. Jesus said, it is done unto us as we believe. This is not an airy-fairy, new age thing. It's a spiritual philosophy that has been around since the beginning of time. And there have been a few avatars and saints and masters who have known this and who have taught us and talked about it, but we're very, very, very slow learners. Well, not you so much, because you're here. I'm just saying that the guy who poaches a rhino to get the horn is a really slow learner, right? Or whatever the case might be. So I want to share with you that these metaphysical ideas are not science fiction. They're not new. And it's visionary to know that, because once you know that, then you know that your faith is in something as concrete as gravity. But we'll come back to that. I want to share, Dr. Ernest Holmes is the founder and creator of Science of Mind, which is now in the world known as the Centers for Spiritual Living. And I want to read to you what he says. He says, we all look forward to the day when science and religion shall walk hand in hand from the visible to the invisible. This is the simple meaning of true metaphysical teaching, the study of life and the nature of law, governed and directed by thought, always conscious that we live in a spiritual universe, that God is in, through, around, and for us. He says there is nothing supernatural about the study of life from a metaphysical viewpoint. That which today seems to us to be supernatural, after it is thoroughly understood, will be found to be spontaneously natural. So, so when we think of God, and you don't have to use that word, I think there probably was a day in my life when that word was not wholly comfortable for me, not because I had an aversion, more because I didn't understand it. Like, what does that mean? Because I'm pretty sure that nary one of us really thought that there was a God sitting on a cloud somewhere listening to 7 billion prayers, right? That it doesn't really make too much sense. So, but man, God is probably not really knowable from the deepest sense, like it's way more than we can possibly put our spiritual arms around. But this love intelligence is something we need to grapple with if we are going to walk through life faithfully, allowing the good that is there to reveal itself to us. So there's one of the Proverbs says, trust in the Lord, which, by the way, in metaphysical terms, the Lord means the law. The law is the law of cause and effect. The law of the word creating, the law of it is done unto you as you believe. So the Lord in metaphysics does not mean God, it means the law. So trust in the law with all of your heart, and do not lean on into your own understanding. In all ways acknowledge, I would put it in here, acknowledge it, and it will make straight your paths, meaning that when we fully embrace the idea that who we are, how we are, our beliefs, our attitudes, our actions, what we do, what we say, what we think, how we feel, when we realize that that is a creative energy that we are using to clothe this world with flesh, circumstances, conditions, people, places, and things. When we understand that and act in accord with that, then things begin to work out in a whole different way. It's the true meaning of faith. Faith is visionary, not blind. Nobody's asking. Nobody's saying believe in something that isn't real. It's believe in something that's so real. So we live in a world, in some ways, that we think is normal. And certainly we, as a whole, certainly nobody in this room, as a whole, we believe is the way it is out here. What people do to other people, what people do to the earth, what people do to themselves, what people do to animals, we find that to be somewhat normal. It's just the way it is. And it's not just the way it is. But if you look carefully, you might feel yourself, something come up in you that says, well, Reverend Denise, we can't all be happy all the time. There has to be winners and losers. There has to be have and have-nots. Somebody has to define where the borders are. We have to protect our rights. We have to fight back on all of the small and large injustices and indignations. This thinking is not the thinking of God or love. This thinking is the thinking of the ego. And as long as the ego is running rampant, the world will continue to look as the world looks. Why? Because the ego's thoughts are equally as creative as love's thoughts. It's the metaphysics. It's the way it works around here. So it isn't so much the question, is love possible? Because love is possible. it is possible for us to live together in love without a conflict. The question really is it possible for you? Right? Or is it possible for us? Is it possible to have more happiness and unhappiness? Is it possible to have more acceptance and conflict? Is it possible for us to have loving relationships? Is it possible for us to have healthier bodies than unhealthy bodies? So faith is a completely practical matter. And for those of you who know me, you know that for me, my spirituality has to be practical or it isn't worth anything, right? It has to show up for me that I am happier, more happy than unhappy. I am more healthy than unhealthy. So we want this question of faith to be personal and meaningful. Now, Einstein posited that every living being should ask themselves the question, do I live in a friendly universe or do I live in an unfriendly universe? And the answer to that question for each individual will determine the quality of their life experience. If you believe you live in a friendly universe, the universe will be friendly to you. And if you believe that you live in an unfriendly universe, you are going to encounter unfriendly things. It's the law. It's the law. Now, it's the law in the same way that gravity is a law. So you and I, we must learn. You and I, in fact, we don't have any problems with gravity because we believe in the things you can see and feel and prove. And some people have proven it. I mean, everyone, all of us we have a lot of faith in gravity. How do I know? Go walk off that cliff. Who wants to go first? Nobody's going to walk off a cliff. Why? Because gravity exists. You know it exists. You have absolute 100% unfettered faith in it. And in order to stay alive, you are not going to walk off that cliff. We need to have that same level of understanding about spiritual laws as we do about physical ones, because they work equally all the time. They don't care what you think. They don't care that you believe them. They don't care, you know what gravity doesn't care whether you believe in gravity or not. And neither does the law of cause and effect. So metaphysics is not science fiction. Your faith can move mountains, and your doubt can create them. We're going to talk about mountains next time I talk. But why aren't your mountains moving? If your mountains aren't moving, why aren't they moving? Right? If the mountains of disbelief, I deeply care about each and every person's individual life. I want your life to be a happy, productive, abundant, healthy life. But in reality, I would love to see the whole world. I have a lot of interest in the world becoming a healthier place because 100 years from now, you and I, we will be gone. Me, not even that long. Well, most of us, not even that long. But in our wake will be our children and our grandchildren. So there is something that needs to happen. We need to wake up. We need to take these principles and we need to apply them. So most of us take a dollop of spirituality and we smear it. Do you know smear, the word smear? We smear spirituality on top of our anger, our guilt, our shame, our regret. And in some ways, that's a little helpful because if you can have a dollop of spirituality, it's better than not having any. And having a lightly improved life is better than having a really crappy one. But there still is something, and I've been doing this for a long time, so there still is something that rears its head for people. When the going gets tough, then all that stuff comes back up again, right? So we meet our conflicts again, we meet our failed relationships again, we meet that chocolate cake again, we meet that drug again. So there is something about wanting to go deeper. And we think that if, well, just one more book, one more class, one more something. So enlightenment is not a learning. It's not something to get. It's something to unlearn. So we're wanting to undo, not do. We're wanting to unknow, not know. Because since you and I were this big, we have been a part of the sleepwalking of humanity, being taught that some people win, some people lose, some people have, some people don't have. Conflict is unavoidable, inevitable, and that we just need to manage to eke out our square on the planet with as much good as we can, not worrying too much about everyone else. It doesn't work, because you and I are trying to live in the same place and in the same environment that people suffer. So the only real solution is that nobody suffers. That's the only solution good enough for a God, right? Is that everyone has equal access to peace. Awakened people do not do what I just described. They do not harm themselves, the earth, other people, or animals. They just don't do it. It's unthinkable for them. So I love the dictionary definition of utopia, which is an imagined place or state of things in which everything is perfect. It essentially says that utopia is it's imaginary, which means it can't happen, right? It can't really happen. So we have to manage our own expectations, because what if it could? You know, perfect in our terms means whole, wholeness, nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing absent. Just like you and me, there's nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing absent. You are not a sinner. We are not sinners. We are not unworthy. We are not any of the things that religion might have told us, your mother might have told us, or we might just have inherited through the consciousness of the race. So I say utopia is an idea whose time has come, and that we need to entertain the possibility of living in a kind of visionary faith that says, if it comes for you, it comes for everyone. Can you be happy? Now, I want to talk about mercy. So, humanity has made many, many terrible mistakes, yes? You and I have made many, well, maybe not you, but I have made many, many terrible mistakes in my lifetime. Ones that I've come to appreciate the distinction between guilt and healthy regret. So no guilt, but with some healthy regret that if I had known then what I know now, those things would have been different. To some degree, most of us have experienced being less than loving, the loving human beings that we know we are capable of being. The mistakes that we have made, no matter how far off the road we have gone, do not in any way negate or deny your perfection, your divinity, your wholeness, the unconditional love that is the very essence of who you are. It does not matter how far off the road you have gone. And I'm leaving nothing out, nothing. I'm not going to name all those things that could have gone wrong on that road, but nothing negates your divinity. The story of the prodigal son, I'm not going to do it right now because it'll be another half hour, but the story of the prodigal son is really all about this son who goes way down that road, squanders his inheritance, does all these despicable, unthinkable things, and yet he's welcomed back into his father's house being the house of God, with no questions asked and celebrated for coming home. It's the same with us. So Marian Williamson talked about mercy. She said a beautiful thing. So first of all, mercy defined means to extend compassion or give forgiveness towards someone whom it is within one's power to punish or harm. So mercy means to extend compassion or forgiveness towards someone whom it is within one's power to punish or harm. So mercy is something you can extend to yourself because you have the capacity to harm or judge yourself, right? In fact, I was talking to somebody the other day who's struggling with health issues having to do with obesity and diabetes. And we were talking about how, even knowing all that, when the stuff hits the fan, caught myself, even knowing all that, the first thing to happen is the refrigerator door gets opened. And why is that? Doesn't it just boggle your minds? And it's not just her, it is all of us. It's like, so we need to have mercy on ourselves. Like a little self-mercy would be great. But she said, there are certain words you can't understand until you experience them, and mercy is one of them. So how many of you have actually experienced mercy on a divine level, like divine forgiveness? How many of you experienced being forgiven or experiencing mercy in a really dark night or a hard time? Yes, it's an amazing thing, and I believe that you actually can't really know what that word means until you've had the experience. But I want to presence for us, like draw a distinction that mercy is like the ultimate of forgiveness, and is probably necessary for us to move into a practical application of faith from a metaphysical perspective. So what is needed? What is needed here for us to move into a powerful month of elevating our faith in the good? Because, by the way, you also always have faith in something. And the evidence of what you have faith in is kind of right in front of you. That should make you want to throw up a little bit. You know, like right in the back of your throat. It's like... Because if what I'm saying is true, and I have absolute faith that it is, that we live in a thought universe and your thoughts create your world and you don't like your world, well, time to change what? The world? You can't change the world. You can only change your thoughts. You can only change you. You can only change how you are. You can only change what you think. But you can change. So faith is the forerunner of our future. Faith in the good. I can't remember what Reverend Claudia, how she said this. The good and the beautiful. I can't remember exactly how she said it, but it was beautiful. But faith in the good, faith in possibility, faith in belief in the idea that you and I can change, belief in the idea that we can create a world that works for everyone. Because if we don't think we can, guess what? We can't. It truly is that simple. So the laws of the universe merely describe the way things are. These laws are not invented, they are discovered. And I want to tell you that when human beings, when we didn't know fire existed, it didn't mean fire didn't exist. We just weren't awake enough. We weren't developed enough to discover it. Then we woke up a little bit more, got a little more consciousness, and then we began to discover gravity, and then we discovered thermodynamics, and then we discovered this, and then we discovered that, and then we discovered this. And now we're discovering the power of faith. Now we're discovering the power of the word. Now we're discovering the power of thought. So this is an natural evolutionary process that we are on, all of us, in one way or another. So the transformation, Marianne says, the transformation of the heart will take more than an intellectual decision. Why? She says, the ego is a mental addiction to the thinking of fear, and only a spiritual awakening can break the addiction. And in order to have that spiritual awakening, we have to open our hearts. We have to want it. You almost have to want it more than you want anything. That cake. So I want to say that ultimately, your power to change lives in a declaration. And a declaration is simply just that. It's like standing right where you are. You say, from this moment forward, no matter what's happened in the past, No matter what my mind is telling me right now, I'm going to be a more loving person. Period. Not I'll be more loving when you change, or not I'll be more loving when the world change, or not I'll be more loving when I've lost those 10 pounds, or not I'll be more loving when my mother is nicer to me, or not I'll be more loving. You take out all of that, it's a declaration. I will be more loving. You can forgive by declaration. I forgive that person. I forgive that person for what they did. I forgive myself for what I did. The habit, the addiction, the obsession, the compulsion, all of it can be eliminated as an active, creative force in your life by saying so. Now, that may be too easy. So for the rest of us, let us embrace the actions that will help us to move from wherever we are to wherever we're going. And by the way, why this is so important is not because it's good to do that, but if you are a happier person, everybody in your sphere of influence will be happier. Everyone. Your family, your friends, your coworkers, it's contagious because we live in a it may look like you're over there and I'm over here, and in between us is space, so we're not connected in any real way unless I come down and hug you. But that's not really true, because we live in a mental universe in which we are all like leaves on a tree, or snowflakes, or waves in the ocean. We are one. So whatever you think can find its way to me, and whatever I think can find its way to you. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's like our brains are more, we misunderstand our brains. Our brains are more like radio tuners than anything else. It's like they are receiving and transmitting machines. So we want to take responsibility for what we receive, like stand guard at the portal of your mind, and take responsibility for what we're transmitting. So where does that leave us? So the prize, so faith, belief, and trust, all tied up together. And you always have faith, belief, and trust in something. So have faith, belief, and trust in that you live in a friendly universe that is for you and not against you, that you live in a universe that is conspiring for your greater good. It's almost like the tree story. Because nowhere yesterday, I know it sounds trivial, but nowhere yesterday was there a energetic, mental, or emotional, this can't happen here. There was nothing but yes. Yes, we can get it done. Yes, we can find people. Yes, I'll help you. Yes, it's done. It's a miracle, right? So that kind of living is living in a space of positive expectation that you will get from the universe what you need to get, when you need to get it, period. And that kind of faith will carry you through the hard times when you're not sure, right? When life feels hard, life will feel hard. But once you have enough faith in your escrow account, you will be able to sit and say to yourself, I know it's hard right now, but if I just sit still for a moment, everything will work out for the greater good, for everyone involved. So I'm going to close with another quote from A Return to Love. And she says, all God needs is just one sincere, surrendered moment when love matters more than anything, and we know that nothing else really matters at all. What we are given in return for our openness is an outpouring of God's power from deep within us. Not from out there, from in here. We are given this power to share with the world, to heal all wounds, and to awaken all hearts. And so it is. Thank you. Faith.
of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you.
So join with me for a moment, in a moment of prayer, not a praying to a reluctant deity, but a praying to align ourselves with the law of good, to align ourselves with the beauty and the intelligence, the wisdom, the order that is the very essence of the spiritual reality, the spiritual home that we live in. We pray to open our minds and to open our hearts to the truth that sets us free, to the truth of love as the ultimate reality, the God-given gift for us to embrace, embody, surrender to, accept. I simply join with each and every one in this room, repudiating the idea that anything from the past can keep us from our own utopia, our own place of wholeness and perfection and peace and power. That we forgive the past. We let the world off the proverbial hook. We let ourselves off the proverbial hook. We open our heart. Open your heart. Let love in, let love out. Open your heart.
See you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you.
There, we declare right where we are that the sleepwalking is over, that we are willing to wake up, that we open the eyes of our heart to see as God would see, to hear as God would hear, to think as God would think, to talk as God would talk, and to absolutely know that in doing so we can become and will become the men and women that love would have us be. And so we are grateful that change is possible, grateful that we have the power to create, grateful that we have the power to change, grateful that we have the power to be together, to remember who we are, and to remember why we're here. And so I just simply deposit the word that I'm speaking on behalf of each and every one of us, everyone within the sound of my voice, into a universe that just says yes and goes about the business of making manifest the word that has been spoken. And so with absolute faith, trust, and belief, we leave this time of prayer, expecting the demonstration, knowing that the outside must match the inside, so we are at peace, all is well with our souls. And so it is. Amen.
Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Sing it with us. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you.
So it is. Thank you. Yes. Oh.